everyone, I am Sheila Sigama, your discussant for today. And our topic is all about El Filibusterismo to the Filipino and the government. And in this topic, we're going to discuss the book of Mr. Anderson, Why Counting Counts, a study of forms of consciousness and problems in language, all about the Nalimitanghi and El Filibusterismo that will showcase the nationalism that the Filipino portrays in the great novels of Rizal. So to discuss Mr. Anderson's life or biography, the author of the Why Counting Counts. So Mr. Benedict Richard O. Gorman Anderson, the author of Why Counting Counts book that discusses the nationalism of the great novel of Rizal, was born on August 26, 1936 and died on December 13, 2015. So he was an Anglo-Irish political scientist and historian as well who lived and taught in the US. So siya po ay nakabase, obviously, I translated Tagalog, sa US and as well nagtuturo din po siya doon. And he was best known for his 1983 book, Imagine Communities, which explore the origin of the nationalism. Originating po ang mga books niya in the Southeast Asians and the other neighboring countries na napupusuan po niyang i-discuss. So aside po sa description niyang best known for his book, The Imagine Communities, he is as well described as a polyglot, which with an interest in the Southeast Asian, again. When we say polyglot, ito po yung mga taong nag-aaral po ng mga different languages na kung saan ay ina-adapt po nila at ginagamit din, or they make use of it. Or in other terms, they are the so-called linguists who loves to study the language and as well use it. So aside po sa mga magandang nangyari kay Mr. Anderson, there's a controversy behind the well-known Mr. Anderson. So his work on the Cornwall paper, which debunked the official story of Indonesia's 30 September movement and the subsequent and the communist purges of the 1965 to 1966, this work of his led to his expulsion from the country, from the Indonesia. Kasi nga po, it was a something that he discusses that is against the government movement, I guess. And that's the ending of the biography of Mr. Anderson. We have the Noli El Fili, the Spanish colonial racial strata and ethnicity. So racial strata and ethnicity. First, when we say strata, it means a particular segment of a single organization, usually signaling or telling a form of ethnic inequality whereby some ethnic groups occupy more advantageous strata than others. So, as pertain po sa novel ng Rizal, this was related to the novel of Rizal. Nagpo-portray po ng inequality between the Spaniards and the Filipinos, or the so-called Indios that time. So, splash po sa screen ninyo, makikita nyo po ang racial pyramid where we have the Peninsulares, Creoles, Mestizo, and Indios. We all know the description of Peninsulares, which are the Spaniards born in the Spanish lander, the Spain. And we have Creoles. Ang mga Creoles po ay mga mixed blood. And then the Mestizo, the Spanish and Filipino, or kaya Chinese-Filipino mestizos. And then we have the Indios, or the native Filipinos, the slave of that time, the Spaniards' colonialization. Referring to the layered pyramid were three significant social groups. We have the immigrant, or the migrants, and the non-Catholic Chinese, and the unsubdued Muslims in the far south, and the Pagan tribes in the Luzon Cordillera. So they were included in this racial pyramid. Ang mga immigrants, ang mga dayuhan ko natin na siyang tuluyan na nanirahan sa ating bansa, the Philippines, and the non-Catholic Chinese, na siyang included na rin po dito sa Philippines that time. And then the subjugated Muslims, we have them also here in our country before the time of Rizal. So then again, in this book, we're discussing the languages, the ethnic languages, and then flash in your screens, we have the table 1, dimensions of racial and ethnic terms in the Noli El Fili, where we have the total frequency of mention, narrator's use of term, and the number of characters using them, the terms.
Political vocabulary and concept. One may think toponyms is quite straightforward indeed. In 35 out of 39 instances, the referent is plainly the Iberia country we know today. One might also suppose that the national noun Espanyol had an obvious and unambiguous connotation. So, sa 52 na binanggit sa nobela, ay malinaw na 24 ay tumutukoy sa mga taong ipinanganak sa Espanya, 3 pantay, malinaw, kasama mga lokal na ipinanganak na Kreyole at Mestiza, at 25 ay hindi matukoy. Since the narrator shows up in each group, he is often uncritically regarded as Rizal's reliable mouthpiece. It may be helpful to offer readers an example of each usage in his commentary. So meaning, sa pagbubukas ng chapter, ang mga regalong naroon na salo-salo na ibinibigay sa Tiago House ay naglalarawan ng una quantos jóvenes entre the Filipino de Españolas, na ang ibig sabihin ay ilang mga babae, pinaghalong mga babae ng Peninsulares. Espanyol, the adjective crops up only 14 times. The narrator used it 7 times. Attached to sangre, viejo, mestizo, empleados, and orgullo. So meaning, ang teniente, ang alcalde de Filipino Ibarra, ang diaryo at ang hindi kilala na boses, bawat isa ay gumagamit ng pang-uri ng isang beses. The difficulties are comparable when it comes to variation on Filipinas, Filipino, and Filipina. The place Filipinas itself might seem ambiguous. Dito naman is, ito ay binanggit ng 58 na beses na may malawak na pamamahagi na hindi ito malinaw sa mundo. Palaging ginagamit upang isama ang rehiyon ng teritoryo ng parangal ni Elias.
Good day everyone, my name is Eric Isengera. My topic is all about the table 2. These are mention of Spaniard and Filipino term in Noli Tangere.
España or Españas, La Pinsula, Españoles, Pinsulares, Españoles plus Creoles, Españoles, vague, Español or Española, adjective, Españolas, place, Filipinos or Filipino noun, Filipino, Filipina, adjective. We may now turn to the 3 terms which could be expected to represent more abstractly the idea of the Philippines as a nation, namely nation, patria, and pueblo. The meaning of naciones most frequently corresponds to the now obsolete meaning of nation that we find in the King James Bible and was still predominant when Adam Smith wrote his great The Wealth of Nations. In effect, a world with board and vogue, semantic range covering people, country, even ethnic group. So the Spanish sentence that you see in the PowerPoint, the English translation of this. So it is when nation, a small nation, that wins a victory over a large ones, signs of it and recounts it throughout the ages. For example, Ibarra contras Europa, consos hermosas naciones, agitándose continuamente, buscando la felicidad. Which means Europe with their beautiful nation is constant. The one who used naciones as a noun comes in chapter 7, Idilo en una azotea, where Ibarra taking to Maria Clara about Europe. make it mean a member or members of nation. It is adjectivical form is used by Ibarra to speak of the orgullo nacional or national pride of different European countries, and by Elias to talk to Ibarra about the Arabs, who gave Spain cultural. Ha sido tolerante con su religión y ha desperado su amor propio nacional alentargado destruyó casi durante la domina Roma noong mano y goda. Finally, in chapter 4, Here y Filibuster, the narrator used nacionalidades to describe the different ethno-racial group cross-crossing the street of Manila. By contrast, Elias employs the world ones in a quiet modern sense, an indirect relationship with the Philippines, when he claims that for us, Catholicism is too costly cara. Pueblo and Parsha are contrariously difficult to translate into English. Pueblo can refer to a place of small-scale human habitation, something like town, to human being living there. And to both at once, it can also be used for much large social unit, such as countries and land, and the people inhabit them. In the Noli, the non-Parsha appears with three different points. The first of these is general. For example, Ibarra says to Tasio that todo hombre debe amar su patria. The Ibarra case includes the three famous sentences in chapter 3, La Cena, where the young mestizos speak os España, mi secunda Parsha. Lastly, there is one passage in which Parsha appears in quasi-adjectival form in the Pace Historia Parsha, Ibarra, with the clear general meaning of belonging to a motherland. Pueblos appear far more often than either nation or Parsha, with more differentiated meanings and a wider range of voice. First of all, there are at least 32 places where the difference is to some usually unnamed township in the Philippines. By implication, mostly in the area around San Diego or near Manila. Then there are 53 places where the word refers explicitly or by direct implication of the physical township of San Diego, perhaps also its town folk. Pueblo connoting people in general. Comparative term in 10 sentence, for example in chapter 9, Cosas del País. The Captain General reflects that cada pueblo miris so suerte, which mean every people deserve its fate. Finally, there are 21 instances where pueblo pretty clearly means the people of Filipinas. In addition, there are 4 cases all in the discussion between Elias and the old Pablo where the meaning of pueblo is ambiguous. It could refers to the township or the people of Filipinas.
Good afternoon everyone, ako po si Graciel Hatip and I will discuss Table 3, Mention of Nacion in its derivative material in Pueblo and Noli. Nacion 713, Nacionalidad 211, Nacional 111, Nacional 2 non-2, Patrial General 613, Patrial Pilipinas 593, Patrial Spanish 12 non-2, Patrial 1 non-1, Pueblo Local Township 3218, Pueblo San Diego Town 532213, Pueblo Diegos Town Folk 5491, Pueblo People in General 1095, Pueblo People of the Filipinas 2114. So, dito sa table, pinag-usapan dito ang tungkol sa mga word na pareho ang spelling but yet they have a lot of meaning. Just like the Pueblo. So, dito daw, gumamit dito si Rizal ng pareho ang spelling but may mga pagkakaiba ang ibig sabihin. Just like the Pueblo. Kapag sinabi natin Pueblo, tao or place, lugar. So, Rizal used the word that has the same spelling but also can lead to different meaning so that the general Spaniard who read the Noli would not think of what Rizal is trying to say. So, sabi, kaya gumamit si Rizal nito na magkakapareho ang spelling pero mayroong iba-ibang meaning. So, sabi, kapag daw mabasa ito ng Spaniard, hindi nila iisipin kung ano nga ba ang nakapaloob doon sa Noli Me Tangere na sinulat ni Jose Rizal. Catch not all but some of the Filipino readers only understand it. So, para daw ang mga Pilipino lang mismo ang makakaintindi ng ibig sabihin na nakapaloob sa Noli Me Tangere. Important feature of Noli Me Tangere and of the sociality in described nation is derivative are used really by very few people and never in reference to the Philippines. Nationalismo and nationalista are spectacularly visible. We have seen that patria is used to several sense different character so that it would be quite misleading. It claimed that it means only one, very nationalistic thing. In fact, in discuss in reference to the Philippines and only half the instant and the number of people who use it are really to Ibarra and Tellas. Furthermore, both of them would accuse mean something not in the Philippines. So, just the word patria. So, kapag sinabi natin patria, pwedeng ilarawan sa mga Pilipino, pwede rin sa Spaniard ilarawan, but can also portray or ilarawan sa pinag-uusapan or saying something to everyone. So, 75% of Pueblo, either or San Diego or for township nearly by around Manila and 17% of user that understand the other meaning by Ibarra, Elias, Tasio, and the narrator. So, 75% lang daw ang makakaintindi ng word na Pueblo. Word of Pueblo. But for the 75, they only understand when they say Pueblo. It's talk about township, lugar. So, tapos, sabi naman, ang 17% naman daw, ang nakakaintindi lang nito ay especially kina Ibarra, Elias, Tasio, at ang narrator. Sila lang ang nakakaintindi ng meaning ng Pueblo. Noli publication in 1887, there was no generally used term for them. They may not be possible since the narrator always used his/her words. So, next is first word. Connected to the concept of personal or national freedom, autonomy, 18 all, libre, free, and dependently political since occurred 3 times, divided between Basilio. So, sabi dito sa first word, in general term, libre or free means freedom, kalayaan. So, we talk about the non-political point to the word. When we say free or libre, it's talk in political way, it's talk about giving, pagbibigayan or getting something for free without paying. Nakakakuha ka ng bagay na hindi mo kailangan bayaran or mag-antay ng kapalit, waiting for ano. So, political way between, when we say libre, it's talk about freedom, kalayaan. Freedom of people, especially that time, we are fighting for freedom of Filipino, every Filipino. Freedom to, kalayaan para mabuhay, kalayaan to speak ilahad natin kung anong gusto nating sabihin. Kalayaan na mamili sa gusto mo. So, Rizal used the Noli. Ginamit daw ni Rizal ang Noli Me Tangere at ang El Filibusterismo to fight for our rights and to show how cruel that time the Spaniard to us as a Filipino. So, ginamit daw ni Jose Rizal ang libro niya sa pamamagitan ng pagsulat ng Noli Me Tangere at El Filibusterismo para daw ipaglaban ang ating karapatan bilang mga Pilipino at ipakita sa lahat na kung gaano nga ba kasama ang Spaniard noon sa ating mga Pilipino. So, second, word connected to the monetary and empire 20 instant king source 18 times indifference. So next, the third word connected to the political party and party political orientation 26 case under the rubric we find partinado mentioned 5 times, always by the narrator. So next, fourth variation on the root El Filibuster 21 mentioned. El Filibuster crops up 18 times. Distribute as follow anonymous voice 6 narrator for the old teniente. So fifth, words connected to progress and reform 25 instance. Progreso is mentioned 9 times. So next is 6, socialidad is mentioned 7 times but only 3 times with political implication. User of the term in the sense are Elias Ibarra Pilipo. 7, words connected to citizenship 6 case. Cloud the Dano comes up 3 times in the Mount of Ibarra Elias and the Captain General. 8, revolution is mentioned 4 times, once each in the Mount of Alberes and the half with Primativo. So, colonials to the narrator and the anonymous voice, adjective colonial. The narrator and the anonymous voice, capitalista, used either to mean a merchant or an agribusiness landowner. So, next is the narrator, a newspaper, and the correspondent diminutive and capitalito, once by the narrator, Calisto. So, yun lang po. Thank you.
Our topic today is all about intermezzo. Intermezzo is the plural or intermezzi or intermezzos in the music of theater and the entertainment before between the act of a play. Also light and instrumental composition. So before turning the final section of this analysis of the Noli with the motion, we'll pause the take of quick look of the vocabulary with the same education of Rizal Cultural Word in 1887 with the Philippines truly 23 toponyms outside the colonial capital motion, only the sea keeping the narrator attention. Outside the Philippines, you find truly 37 toponyms, only the 19 which are the not provide the narrator. Next topics is toponyms is the name of place. The 3 contemporaries, Isabel, Amado, and Antonio Canavos and Chego. The 3 famous European scientists is Copernicus and Galileo and Champollion. Our motion by provided Potasio and the narrator if the are surprised, absent, any James, the circular goat home result and greatly to the heaven.
Hello everyone, my name is Ernesto Itrayeres Jr. I'm here to discuss the question about Tagalog. There are 2 questions to be addressed. First questions, which persons are said to speak about Tagalog language? Second question, who is said to use it to whom? Tagalog, however, is mentioned more than Latin 29 times. over half of this mention comes from the narrator 17 times. School teachers 2 times, Padre Damaso 1 time, the nag the Graviger 1 time, Tasio 1 time, the young politician 1 time, an anonymous voice 1 time, Elias 1 time, La Consolacio 1 time, and her assistant 1 time, Tanching 1 time, and Primitivo 1 time. Kung bibilangin natin, all in all, 29 times. Who is said to use it whom? The narrator tells us directly of the following interlocutors. The grave digger speak in Tagalog to his associate. The gobernadorcillo to Tasio. La Consolacio to her assistant Sisa, telling him in Spanish to tell Sisa in Tagalog to start singing. Ibarra to Elias. Padre Damaso to Tia Isabel. A bandit to Elias, and the Bisaya civil guard to his Tagalog comrade. And the pulsing things about these collections of reference is that while it is large enough to command our attention, it is difficult to see convincing pattern. In the end, it may be that the important things its simply presence, since in the Fili there is nothing comparable. Almost no one is described as speaking Tagalog. And as you can observe, the formal numbers conceal something else. Most of the characters who use Tagalog typically do so in the forms of exclamations, aray, aba, nako, sus Mariosep, and they in the most brilliant and searing use of Tagalog comes. Strangely enough, in these scenes where La Consolacio surely heard is subtened. In the brilliant opening chapter, Rizal word, O to Cumiles, amigo o inamigo, si is QT altrin, Atilos Acurdes, de la Vidyala y de los Cuaberetos y Cuares Bercam, son las reunión a la en la Perla de Orienta. So this statement, which means you read me, be a friend or foe. If you are attracted by the sounds of the orchestra, the lights of the unmistakable tinkle of glass and silverware, and wish to see one partist and like over there in the Pearl of the Orient. So our interpretation regarding to the result statements on chapter, it tells that number 1, they are divided between friend and foes and not between Filipino and Spaniards nor fellow nationalities in the colonizations. Number 2, they may will be curious to learn how parties are organized in the Manila, something which Spanish readings, Filipinos, and many Spaniards would know well without opening the novel at all. Number 3, the most important Manila Fair of Orient is shooted far away from the other side of the world.
Way back in time, 1886 to 1887, the Nalamitangere turned out to be a flam among the Filipinos. From Maximo Viola, the constant companion of Rizal, that resolved too seriously about writing his novel in French, but this plan was never carried out, even though it could reach a much wider international audience than was possible with Spanish. Rizal did not carry out the plan July 2, 1890. The technologists wrote that with excitement, waiting the book to be written in French, as mentioned earlier, but result already in a letter from London, dated August 28, 1888. He had written to Blue Mantra. I used to think of writing also in French, but I come to believe that it is better to write for my fellow countrymen. I have to use the spirit of my fatherland from its slumber. As we can see, Rizal did not think about only for himself, but he chose to lift up and away. At this point, we can go back and maybe resolve the two puzzles that concerned us earlier. The two puzzles, one by those the Indio alias representative hero of the most oppressed and prosecute strata of colonial society, never offered the reader a single word of Tagalog. It's because he is certainly never allowed by the author to speak of perfect Tagalog. He is a serious, noble, and long-suffering hero, and therefore to be protected from any trace of sarcasm. We can observe that there are mixed speech of Noli means that there is coloniality within, and alias is a man outside coloniality, so he must speak, and these words must be in perfect Castilians, since the novel was written in Spanish, not in Tagalog. In addition, the questions of who is answered with complete clarity by his actions that he needs no linguistic guarantee of his authenticity. In a way, there are plenty of characters whose racial classifications of deliberately left unknown the total absence of explicit reference to Chinese mestizos. Chinese were to be disliked not as a non-white but also as a religious, ignorant, money-grabbing, dishonest, cunning, and even vulgar. His disapproval of anti-Semitism are visible at the Nole. What's striking in the lowly is the total absence of Chinese surnames. While many names characters are given no surnames at all, and this is an unusual pattern, is a reason for this trustfulness or do cause doubt into China. Pure or mestizo will be an uncomfortable third party, neither exactly native of or colonial, and almost all of them too dated their origin in the country to attack. Being discussed, the widespread belief in the imperial centers, England, Spain, and Portugal, that the natural environment in distant, strange, tropical colonies had a degenerative effect, and in the 18th century, wealthy young men sent to Spain for higher education and found themselves referred to with the contempt as Americanos. No one in Madrid cared whether they were crew or mestizos. This history was likely repeated when numbers of young men from the rich families in the Philippines started going to Spain. Higher education people in Madrid and Barcelona could not care less whether these young men come from Iloilo or Batangas, or they were speakers of Ilocano or Tagalog, or whether they were crew mestizos or Malays. They were in manners of the late 18th century. Americanos, simply Filipino, and another kinds of comparisons just illuminating can be offered more. Briefly, student originating from the Dutch East Indies formed in Holland as association. Its member were a mixed Las Javanese, Menodanese, Sandanese, and even native mestizo category, and Muslim, and Christians of different persuasions by religion. And they were all simply in this youngsters you see this awareness of their absolutely irrelevance. Holland is in distinctions of huge importance in colony. In all cases, the Philippines, Spanish America, and Indonesia. We can then see the structural reasons for the historical progressions. From an early cultural and emotional identifications, place result Patria and Adorada. Initially a familiar hometown of region. Later in Europe with extensions from within the abstract map space of the colony, and I believe we can take the no limit danger of 1887 as a milestone on this highway for the Philippines. One fails as one reads that is waiting just over the novel's horizon.
Good day everyone, I am Treya Monica Hamila. I am discussing El Filibusterismo. Ang El Filibusterismo, ito ay ang pangalawang nobela na isinulat ni Dr. Jose Rizal. Sa English, ito ay The Range of Greed. Ito ay binubuo ng 39 na kabanata. One notices that shift of Simon rhetoric. When we say rhetoric, it means the art of effective, persuasive speaking on writing. So there actually has two cases regarding his tactical shift on rhetoric. First, we have the catastrophic Spanish South America in deployed as a warning against Hispanization. Second, it is the utilized to show the cynicism of European power. When we say cynicism, it means the inclination to believe that people are motivated purely by self-interest. Applause for the Latin American Republic military achieved independence followed the inhuman of my mate. Right. Next, we have the Philippines toponyms are mentioned on 12 times by the comparison with Noli 23. When we say toponyms, it places name, especially one derived from a topographical feature. So, toponyms is general term for a proper name of geographical feature and scope. Full scope of the term also include proper name of all cosmographical feature. Tapend toponyms are place name that we mentioned by the narrator in the El Filibusterismo. Luzon, Iloilo, San Mateo, Batangas, Albay, Cagayan, Pangasinan, Tabayas, and Visayas. The character of the book, like Simon Fiction, Studio mentions some toponyms in the book. So, Simon mentioned the Los Baños, Fiction mentioned the Malolos, Custodio mentioned Mindanao. So, in El Filibusterismo, the geographical bias in favor of Luzon is very obvious and reminiscent of what we observed in the Noli. So, it means here in El Filibusterismo, it is very obvious that the place where mentioned are all part of the Luzon in Noli Me Tangere. Next, the El Fili contained 45 toponyms to the Noli 47. There is a small reduction in European dominance. So, as you can see here in the table, these are the regional distribution. First, we have a European 18 and 27 mentioned, Asia 9 and 7 mention, Middle East 9 and 7 mention, the America 4 and 2 mention, Oceania 2 and 2 mention, Africa 1 and 3 mention, Caribbean 2 in El Filibusterismo. With regard to the character in El Filibusterismo, the narrator mentioned toponyms 53 to 57 in total times. Simon mentioned 16 toponyms, Mr. Led mentioned 8 toponyms, and Ben Saib mentioned 3 toponyms. So, 2 mentioned each for Macaraig, Tideo, and Custodio, and 1 piece for Palaesas, Father and Son, Kapitana Tenchang, Isagani, Kapitan Basilio, Ship Captain P. Florentino, and Horatius. In Noli Me Tangere, there are no saints that are mentioned compared to the 22 mentioned in the Noli. So, the wholesale disappearance of the categories of saint, church history, and colonial history. So, here in Noli Me Tangere, there are no mention about saints or church. Unlike in Noli Me Tangere, there are actually one possible reason regarding that. So, that possible reason of the disappearances of the categories of saint, church in any history and colonial history in El Fili. Because in the Noli, the narrator dominates the usage of the name, so the general denomination can partly be explained by the fact that the Fili is a lot shorter than Noli. So the reason why there are no mentioned saint or any church history or colonial history in El Fili because it is a lot shorter than Noli. But this is just a possible reason, not a final reason. Yun lamang po. Thank you.
Good morning. My topic for today is all about question about Tagalog. In the first section of this book, one of the arguments made was the only possible way to explain the fact that the narrator was by far the largest user of Tagalog words, and that a huge percentage of these words that Spanish paraphrases attached to them was the underscore the degree to which the book aimed a sympathetic novel, but very well informed international relationship. Isinulat ni Rizal ang nobela in Spanish sa pamamagitan nitong Spanish name, and the heavy use of Tagalog ay isang paraan ng pagpapahayag ng kanyang indigenous at sa tunay na pag-aakilanlang bilang isang Pilipino. Quantitative data show depending on how one count approximately 196 words, including repetition, not only in the total substantially larger than the Noli, approximately 127, but the destruction is far wider. Ipinapakita ng quantitative data depende sa kung paano binibilang ang humigit kumulang 196 na salita kabilang ang pag-ulit hindi lamang sa kabuang mas malaki kaysa sa Noli. Humigit kumulang 127, but the destruction is far wider. Kaya ang talagang mga salita ay talagang may epekto at sa mga taong nagbabasa nito o nababasa nito. Narrator, 18 including the 2 voice-over for Simon and Cabezang Talis, and each one for P. Million and Custodio. Aning student 20, Macraig 10, the Katie Vendor and Hermana Petra, 10 each, Simon 7, Tadeo P. Million and Primitive 5 each, Isigani the Ship Captain and Anonymous Woman, and Texon 4 apices, Cabezang Andang and Romor Monger 3 each, P. Salve La Victorina, Kapitanang Loling, Hermana Bari, Quiroga Anonymous Voices, and the town clerk 2H and Cabezang Talis, Basilio B. Zaid Tandamselo, Captain Basilio Panchente as silversmith, as a Christian, the Curate of San Diego, an anonymous man, neighbors, and a conspirator. One apiece, the only significant group missing is that of the friars. Some users of Tagalog so visible in the Noli are slightly less conspicuous in the Fili. Once again, Tagalog exclamation are deployed for purely comic effect. Ilang gamit ng Tagalog na nakikita sa Noli ay medyo hindi gaanong kapansin-pansin sa Fili. Minsan naman ang Tagalog exclamation ay madalas na ginagamit para sa puro comics na epektibo. Aba, naku, ay, uy, aray, sulong, sus Mariosef, for example. They are used by those bossy and shallow middle-aged women for who Rizal seem to have had special aversion. An intricate nexus between authority and the presence-absence of Tagalog. Crispin's riddle on the lines from Balagtas, both forming complete sentences and both untranslated, are sign of the Crispin truth of the uncontaminated language. Elias never used the language, and it's just absence that protect his seriousness and purity. The big difference between the two novels comes with the student who used Tagalog 44 times. Almost all named student, good, bad, and indifferent, Amakaraig, Pexo, Penente, Tadeo, and so on, use Tagalog words. The surprising exception is Juanito Elias, who however used plenty of Spanish stuff. The most telling evidence, the brilliantly achieved conversation that takes place between a candy vendor with one of her student customers in the aftermath of the mass arrest. For the episode, through quite brief, runs flatly against the logic of Simon's passion for a narrative national idioma, as well as that of the rival campaign for the installation and promotion of academic hyperization. It is rendered in what is often called Chabacano, but in the Fili, Amore, traditional name Espanol de Parian, is more appropriate. Guillermo Gomez Reyes write the Calocino de Binondo o El Lenguaje de Binondo. Es Rona Chabacano o Crivello que original del comerciante chini Cristiano Jose El. Comienzo de la Trata de los Galeones de Manila. A partir de este tiempo era idioma popular de las Caprai, Venta, all form major e all form minor. The argument of the Minondo of language of Christian Chinese traced from the start of galleon trade. From that time on, it was the popular idiom for wholesale and retail trade.
Good day everyone, I am Ian Isita. I am here to tackle about what are we to make of this. So, why can't we get in? Asked by a woman voice. Aba, Nyora. Inside there's only friars and officials. A man replied. The Sphinx head is just for them. Still, these friars are weird. Said the woman as also moved away. They don't want us to catch on when they come out food. Engrañado. What can you expect in the Sphinx head? Some friar's girlfriend. In this conversation, Rizal does not use Espanol, here to invite his readers to laugh at or look down on the two speakers. Rather, he invites us to laugh along with them, especially at the woman's marvelous final sarcasm. Furthermore, Romanilius draw our attention to a postcard sent by Rizal to Pedro Paterno from Hong Kong on February 9, 1998, which read, I am here with Nol Ariarte. I am leaving from London via United States. We'll visit you soon. I send my greetings to comadres and also to you. Bye-bye, Nol Maginoo. Here it is a straightforward communication in Espanol with only the mild malas involved in combining Nol and Paterno's potential bestowed Tagalog title. Even though Rizal casually mentioned the student Chinese Manilan address, the only sign of the Calo Binondo is his unmarked use of Fultre or Fuerte. Nol is strictly absent. One can't help feeling that Chinese has been airbrushed from the picture, leaving a pure mix of Spanish and Tagalog like the airbrushing of Chinese mestizos throughout the novel. There are parallels elsewhere in Southeast Asia. Bangkonians almost universally replace the correct R with Teochew-derived I in every speech. Long Lian for Wrong Rian. It means school, but its transformation almost never appears in written type. Jakartans casually use Hokkien numerals in the letters, but this behavior is rarely reflected in written public Indonesians.
Good everyone, I'm Dina El Today I will discuss about conclusion reflection. So the first and most general lesson is that the long-standing practice of selective and open tendencies, short quotations from the novels in order to force their author into particular and sometimes anachronistic political positions is obsolete and should now be abandoned. So ano nga ba ang ibig sabihin ng obsolete? So ang ibig sabihin po ng obsolete is no longer produced or used. So ang iba po na scholar ay tinatry po nila na maunawaan kung ano ang minimin or ibig sabihin po is that it's essential to bear constantly in mind that the novels were written by a man who spent almost all his adult life up to 1892 outside the Philippines. So, ibig sabihin po nito is si Dr. Jose Rizal po ay isa po siyang nagsulat ng novels at ang Noli daw po was clearly written part of non-Filipino leadership. While El Fili po is contrast completely is Rizal fellow countrymen. So imagine po na ang Philippines daw po is heavenly refracted through the further open temple expert in Europe. Third lesson is the course of writing the novels. Rizal was step by step and probably not always consciously rethinking his identities and those of his fellow countrymen. So dito po, ang El Fili has largely been rapidly figured on triangular form, which kung saan ang Chino and Indios daw po sharply and compatibly up against to each other under Spanish colonial authority. Then next po, one perceive a perform aporia for the transcendence to happen have to be a stable high term for their reincarnations, but both Indio and Filipino had yet achieved of these positions in the colony. Sabi po dito na si Rizal are shines about the calling characters, Tagalog event through the Tagalog language. Is every verse in the text pictures Philippine society emergence without in a linguistic group. So but also in the whole without collective name yet. So then, next po, final conclusion. If no one can call if that is the novels reveal to us the complexities of the relationship between nationalism and language. So, kagaya po nga sa sinabi ni Basilio, na in your nationality is did not your share it, him itself. At mayroon po tayong no less than 40 spoken language in the Philippines. The topic that assigned to me is about two general options to domestic problem. So una po, the residue of second generations European romantic nationalism is to enshrine the local language as the national language. So, ibig sabihin po nito is walang katapusan na problema po na piliin natin yung local language as the national language is politically and economically, but the policy is almost resistant because of pressures from the states and the state educational system in the domain in the public affair. The next po, understanding the cultural politics involved and for an open lingua franca that does not belong to any one group. So, ibig sabihin po dito, the dominant group is significant advantage. So, the Tagalog are the resistant as the national language, then by the creativeness wars that Rizal that himself and not recognized. So, si Rizal po is nag-provide po siya ng trying completely absent Noli, the novelist aware the politics domestic in lingua franca. So, yun lang po at maraming salamat.
In Noli Me Tangere, it revolves around Crisostomo Ibarra, who's after a 7 years stay in Europe to study, come home to his hometown San Diego. So dreaming with the desire to contribute to the development of the townspeople. More especially, as a reformist, he aims to make education accessible to more people. His idealism, however, cannot bear fruit because of insidious force bent on destroying him. So Ibarra's father, Don Rafael, had been embroiled in a conflict with Padre Damaso, whose eventually caused his humiliation and death, and it is not only political power that the friar will he also use power to seduce the mother of Maria Clara, who is Ibarra's sweetheart. So Ibarra has another enemy in the person of Padre Salve, who lastly after Maria Clara, it is also Padre Salve who almost caused Ibarra's death at the groundbreaking ceremony for the school. Things come to a head when Ibarra is implicated in a failed uprising in- instigated by Padre Salve. So the young man is imprisoned but is eventually rescued by Elias, whose life Ibarra has saved in the past. So the novel ends through truly disillusions Ibarra see a bleak future. For the characters in Nole Me Tangere, we have Crisostomo Ibarra, also known his full name as Juan Crisostomo Ibarra de Magsaling, a Filipino who studied in the Europe for 7 years, the love interest of Maria Clara, and son of the deceased Don Rafael Ibarra. Crisostomo changed his surname from Ibarra Mendia to Ibarra from his ancestor's surname. Next, we have Elias. He was the Ibarra's mysterious friend. He was referred to at one point as the pilot. He wanted to revolutionize his country. Ibarra's grandfather condemned his grandfather of burning a warehouse, making Elias the fugitive he is. Next, we have Maria Clara. Maria Clara de los Santos Ibarra, sweetheart, the illegitimate daughter of Father Damaso and Pia Alba. Next, we have Padre Damaso, also known in his full name as Damaso Verdoragas, Franciscan friar, and Maria Clara's biological father. Next, we have Don Filippo, a close relative of Ibarra and a filibuster. Next, we have Linares, a distant nephew of Don Tiburgo de Espandana that will be fiancé of Maria Clara. Next, we have Captain General, the most powerful official in the Philippines, a hater of secular priests and corrupt official and a friend of Ibarra. Next, we have Captain Pablo, the leader of rebels whose family was destroyed because of the Spanish. And next, we have Trasilo and Bruno, their brother whose father was killed by the Spaniards. So Trasillo and Bruno, they are brothers. And next we have Sisa, the mother of Basilian Crispin, who went insane after losing her son. Next we have Basilio, the elder son of Sisa. Crispin, the younger son of Sisa, who died from the punishment from the soldiers from the false accusation of stealing an amount of money. Next we have Padre Sibila, Hernando de la Sibila, a Filipino friar. He is described as short and has fair skin. Next, we have Captain Tiago, also known his full name, Don Santiago de los Santos, the known father of Maria Clara, but not the real one, and he lives in Binondo. Next, we have Padre Salve, also known in his full name as Bernardo Salve. He is a secret, or he was the secret admirer of Maria Clara. Lastly, we have Pilosopo Tasio, also known as Don Atanasio, portrayed in the novel as a pessimist, cynic, and mad by his neighbor.
Here in El Fili, Simon was presented as the enigmatic main character. And pag sinabi po natin enigmatic, it's all about the mystery or mysterious type of person. And in the sequel of Noli Me Tangere, Chrysostom Ibarra of the Noli Me became or was presented as Simon here in El Fili. At bakit kaya, if ever you guys read the first novel Noli, you know that something happened to the main character Ibarra, leading him to misfortune, and that causes his different identity in the sequel El Fili. At mas mauunawaan po natin lahat ang transition or daloy ng story at masusundan po natin. Simon in the sequel El Fili has this desire to avenge his sufferings and rescue Maria Clara. So bakit kaya? Kung natatandaan natin sa Noli, Simon as Ibarra had his super distasteful sufferings and pains caused by all the misfortunes and tragedy that's all caused by his enemies, who are the friars who had this kind of control among us visa or mga nasasakupan, especially as the English that time. And even the government does abide or get alongside with what the friar says in order to be done. There had happened the embarking on the crusade, or what we call the Kilusan in Tagalog, that has this strong goal of which to corrupt and thus weaken various institutions that would eventually lead to a bloody revolution. So dito na po yung part na kung saan may plano na si Simon, ang ating main character, to act up against the dictating friars and surely made them suffer from before. At sa part po na to, kasali na po si Basilio. We must not forget that Basilio was one of the sons of Caesar, at siya po yung kapatid ni Crispino na kaligtas at natulungan kalaunan. That's why in here sa El Fili, Basilio is still existing. He became one of the ally or kakampi ni Simon sa kanyang pagbabalik at pagkaplano sa Pilipinas against the friars. After ng isang matinding eksena sa El Fili ni Simon, because if I am not mistaken, sa story na to, Simon had this plan to have his most awaiting revenge na may sasagawa sa eksenang kasalan ni Napolito Gomez at ng kanyang mga pag-asawa. Kung tama ang pagkakaalala ko, there is this lump that has a bomb or pasabog that will destroy or kill those individuals residing or nananatili sa building na pinagdarausan ng kasalan. But then, skipping the tragic event where Simon didn't happen to completely succeed with his plan, if my memory serves me right, Simon, carrying his huge stash of jewelry, flees to the mountain retreat of Padre Florentino, his friend priest, and there he lives sick and weak dahil sa mga sugat na natamon niya from the action he did and the revenge of his, at nang kanyang iniwan sa pangalaga ni Padre Florentino ang mga kayamanan niya, thinking that sa paring ito ay safe at hindi mapasakamay ng makasalanan or masama ang treasure niya. Eventually, our main character died as the ending of the story arrives, at namatay po siya and he no longer fought for his life. Afterwards, Padre Florentino then throws Simon's treasure sa dagat with the hope na muli man itong matagpuan ni naman. Sana gamitin lamang ito sa tama at ikabubuti ng lahat, just like what the owner did when he's still living, and that is Simon. Discussion of the El Filibusterismo's characters. First, we have for Simon, our main character, who poses as an arrogant elitist or elitista mayaman who had a wicked plan of revenge. And Basilio, ang anak ni Sisa, in El Fili, he became so far successful position in his last year at the university. And Saganis, Basilio's friend, a nephew of Padre Florentino, and Polita's love interest. And we have Capesantales, father of Julian Arhuli, and then Custodio, a famous constructor but laughably incompetent, and Polita Gomez, former lover of Isagani, niece of Doña Victorina. Father Florentino, Isagani's uncle and the retired priest. Juliana, daughter of Capesantales, our girlfriend of Basilio, who died then once tried to be raped by Father or Padre Camora. And we have Bensag, a free-spirited journalist or columnist. The Cito Penitente, a student who doesn't have interest in studying and became Simon's bomb maker. And then we have Quiroga, is a Chinese businessman who was one Simon coerced to hide his weapon. And old Mancelo is the father of Cabezantales, Father Fernandez, Dominican priest, who was a friend of Isagani. And Attorney Pasta, Captain General Simon's friend and confidant. Padre Ceballos, a Dominican priest, described as a liberal friar who prefers reasons. Those are the characters who plays major roles in the El Filibusterismo, who had helped discourage and make the way for Simon to have his revenge again in the El Fili. And that's the ending of the El Filibusterismo. Thank you.